Wonderful. Okay, this is great. Sarah, I am so excited to start this again. This comes around so fast. It's our once a month parent partnership, and I love this.
I love it too. And the feedback I'm
exciting.
getting from the recordings on our websites, yeah, people watching and really enjoying the sessions is great. So I'm really excited for this one too. I'm really excited to hear Beth.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, and that's what I want to share today, because I found Beth through the academy, through getting on signing up for one of the sessions at the academy conference. So I was really glad to find her this
Yeah,
way.
and those conferences are a great way also, yeah, to really
They
get yourself
are.
out there and hear new people and learn new
Yeah.
things. I love them and miss them. I miss the in-person.
Yeah, but the kind of unintended consequence of having to be virtual is people from all over the country can come to the Academy conference, which they couldn't before.
You're right.
Just prohibitive. And I hear from people in Hawaii. I mean,
yeah,
it's really lovely.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
That's
like you
true.
said, people that can't travel, people that, don't have the opportunity to travel. These wonderful
Yes.
conferences.
So that means that this information is getting out there in different pockets of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love most, Beth, as people are coming in, I love that, educators are coming to these conferences, but we need to bring people like you to our parents. Our parents need to hear about this as well. When we learn something, we want to pass it on to them immediately. And that's why I'm so thankful that you agreed to be part of this, because our parents, they want to know too.
They do. And I think they also have so many questions they don't even know they have. Right. And so listening to our speakers really, it just gives them that knowledge and information to have a better understanding.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Well, it looks like all the participants, that number hasn't moved for a little bit. So I say maybe we could start. You guys agree? You agree, Sarah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
they come.
Yeah, let's do it. And it's recorded, like we said, so it'll definitely be on our sites. So welcome, parents. Here we are again. I feel like we just had, a session, our October session, and I'm here to tell you, we had this planned within a couple days after our October session. We knew we wanted to feature Beth more, so let me tell you. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Teresa Kalchek, and I'm the director of the Center for Multisensory Learning at Wheeling Country Day School. Sarah, a little intro of yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Sora. I'm the director of the Dyslexia Center and Learning Lab at the Campus Laboratory School of Carlow University.
Yes, and for those of you that may be new, Sarah and I, our learning centers, we're partners in education, and when she learns something new, I'm usually her first phone call, and she's always my first phone call when we're learning something new. So it's always really, really exciting. That's for sure. So we like to share the new knowledge. But I want to introduce our guest speaker today. So on the screen, you're going to see Beth Moore. Beth Moore is a specialist in reading readiness and in handwriting. Its development stages, fine motor skills, and the critical role it plays in reinforcing reading, spelling, and written language. She is presented at the International Dyslexia Association and the Academy of Wharton Gillingham Practitioners and Educators Conferences. Her book, which I have right here, which I'll be referring to it, her book, Readiness for Reading, is a result of working for 18 years with 5 to 7-year-olds in a private school in Baltimore for dyslexic students. So Beth realized that current readiness materials to prepare children for their reading journey, especially those children who learn differently, were a little incomplete. There was a little bit more out there. There were some fine phonological awareness books, some visual training, but nothing that really addressed the kinesthetic component, developing writing readiness. By combining these three learning channels, the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, into a multisensory whole, she organized a step-by-step progression of skills necessary for success in beginning reading. So Beth, I love that. I want to hear more about how you got started and how this book resulted. Our audience is really, really excited to hear more from you. So welcome today.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I had the good fortune in my lifetime to be mentored by my first person, Helene Durbrow, who actually worked with Anna Gillingham and Samuel Orton. She took her son to their language research center in the 30s for help because he was struggling to read. And she was in her 90s when she found me, just a young mother. And she expected me to drop everything as well as my children to come and watch her teach, to bring my students, because I was teaching privately as well, bring them to her. And I look back on that time and I wish I could remember more of what she taught me. But I feel like what she put into me is what Anna Gillingham and Dr. Orton put into her. And a lot of the things that those pioneers did back then were absolutely remarkable. And I feel like the more opportunities I have to talk to people, the more the original intent of OG can be accomplished. And that original intent, as Teresa did in my introduction, this is that triangle that we can't, as educators, ever get away from. And over the years, we've lost a lot of this, the writing piece. We're pretty good with the auditory and the visual, but Dr. Orton intended for all three channels to be firing simultaneously in order that our children who learn differently because their brains are organized differently can be successful. So I spent 20 years in this school and I already knew Orton Gillingham. I'd already been tutoring for a long time and then had the opportunity to be in the school for dyslexic children. And I realized in the first half hour of the first day with these 12 children that I wasn't prepared to teach them. They didn't stay in their seats. They didn't even stay in the room. They couldn't do anything independently. They were just wonderful, young, dyslexic learners who were active and engaging. But these channels had not been developed to the point where they could learn, where I could start teaching them sound symbol. This is what a T looks like. Its sound is T, and this is how we make it. They weren't ready for anything like that. And so I said to myself, all right, I understand the simultaneous multisensory teaching that I learned from Helene Durbrow. How do I take that into pre-reading if you can't use the symbols of the language yet? You can't write the letters yet. Can't discriminate the sounds. How do I take this multisensory approach that is so vital to the success of our children who learn differently? And that became the journey, which ultimately resulted in the book. I just read everything I could on readiness. I looked at, I would go in bookstores and I would look at those kind of paperback readiness activities where you got to do, find the pictures that are the same, or at any rate, I began making lists of everything in the kinesthetic channel, everything in the auditory, and everything in the visual channel that needed to work. And so I've got a little needed to work sufficiently so that children could learn sound symbol. And we couldn't let them fail. Absolutely could not let them, these 5 and 6 year olds, fail. And what's happened now, what's very interesting, this journey that I have began with dyslexic children and helping them to learn, but it has now branched out as good education for young children, for the 4s, the 5s, that kindergarten teachers should know this information. And our children who learn, the typical learner should have this background too. And that has been really exciting. So let's take a different look at visual, auditory, and kinesthetic channels. We're going into a candy store. Bear with me. There they are, the jelly beans in those tubes in candy stores. Now the jelly beans, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic channels, they don't represent neurons. They just represent capacity, the ability to learn. Because our children who learn differently have differently organized brains. But the weakness comes in the connectivity. Those Interstate 95 we have that runs down the East Coast where I am, those interstates that we need to operate incredibly well are what is not working for our children who learn differently. And what are some of the symptoms? In the visual field, maybe your child doesn't recognize his or her name. They're not aware of print or of words in stories. They can't tell you what letter is the same as another letter because this visual channel has not connected same and different to what they are looking at. And in the auditory channel, oh, let me go back to the visual patterns. And we see that in our dyslexic readers. They don't recognize something that's happening that's the same. If OI says oi on one page, it's going to say oi on another page. But they don't make that connection necessarily in the beginning of instruction. And the auditory channel, oh my goodness, where it's so hard to pay attention. Directions are confusing, especially the multi-step ones. And if our children have had lots of ear infections in those first 5 years, they don't hear language, they don't hear the sounds. If they haven't been exposed to advanced vocabulary in those first 5 years, they're not taken to libraries or to museums, they don't hear language. So you can start to see a profile developing. All right, our kinesthetic learners can't sit still. They're fidgeting. They don't want to write, not interested in drawing. There may be some fine motor issues. So now we see capacity missing in these channels, which we need to build back up for the success of our learners. And I'm going to show you just the very beginning of how I start to build the visual channel, how I build the auditory channel, just the beginning stages, and the kinesthetic channel. Now, in a lesson, you would teach activities from each channel. But I've discovered in giving presentations that it's less confusing to try to just develop the visual channel, go with me on this, develop the auditory channel, develop the kinesthetic, so you have an idea of what's needed to get a child ready for sound symbol. But when you teach in using my book, the lessons are designed, over 150 activities are designed systematically for you to teach all three in one lesson. So I hope that's not too confusing. So what happens then in the 10 lessons, and a lesson might take a month, it might take 6 months, it might take a week. It just depends. So you do all three, and then you move down. I've got a skills page, which I should have gotten out, that shows the channels and all the activities. But I just wanted to make that clear that this presentation will be developing each channel separately. But when you teach, you've got to do the easiest in the visual, easiest in the auditory, easiest in the kinesthetic. So that when we're all finished, I will be able to bring our young man back and show what input has done for him and being able to handle reading. All right, let's take the visual channel. The first thing that you do in the visual channel for any child, dyslexic or not, is for them to learn what their name looks like and that the name has letters in it. And beware what you name your child, because if they learn differently, Eloise has had a terrible time learning her name. It's got a capital E, a lowercase e. It's got weird vowels in the middle that don't say what they're supposed to say. So what do we do about that? We play lots of name recognition games for Eloise. And one of them is a matching game. Eloise, here's your name. And here are the letters. Let's see if we can put them in order. And I'm going to be emphasizing words. Order is an extremely important word in the teaching of reading. So we have to teach what order means. And so I'll tell her, you know what, Eloise, I'm going to change this paper so that you've got a nice mat to work on. And what does that have? It's got a green circle. And I'm just going to say now, Eloise, that this green circle is where we begin. We begin all of our work. So you can do matching games. And of course, you say the letter names. I've been working for Eloise for a year. She's just now remembered L. And we will have an amazing party when we are finished, because it's a long journey for Eloise. E, L, we're matching O, I, S, E. So that's a matching game, and we're saying the names, knowing that Eloise didn't remember those letters, but eventually you do it often enough, matching her name letters to the matching letters. And I say to her, I said, Eloise, you're going to be so happy that you have a longer name, because that means you're going to learn more letters than a child like Ben, who only learns 3. And then you hide her name around the classroom, and we up the ante a bit. Eloise, this is all visual. Is that your name? So we're adding a degree of visual discrimination. Let's see, it's got, that's the same, that's the same. Uh-oh, but this is different. So we teach order. I will come back to same and different later on, but you teach those words. And then finally, you challenge. Is that your name, Eloise? No, why is that not your name? Well, these 2 letters are not in the right order. Is this your name? No. Look at that. What's different? This should be at the end, and this should be at the beginning. All this language that you developed visually just on her name. And then, of course, there's print awareness, which you all, I'm sure, do a beautiful job of. But our children who learn differently would see the pictures, of course, not the words. Well, what do you think these are? I don't know. They're words. And you can tell where a word starts and where it ends, because there's a space. So we can count these words. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5. This is all part of print awareness. I could read those words to you. What pet should I get? And then you just go through these wonderful books. Don't teach reading from Dr. Seuss, but enjoy Dr. Seuss. Everybody thinks that, or many think that reading starts with Dr. Seuss, but it doesn't. Anyway, that's just a little bit about print awareness. I teach front of the book, back of the book. Who wrote this? Well, that's the author's name, and the illustrator who drew the pictures. All of this about a book. And then, what do you see? We see a pig. Now what do you see? A duck. Which one came first? See, I'm emphasizing order here. Oh, the pig came first. The duck came last. Children pretty well know what first and last means, because they all want to be first and nobody wants to be last. So we're not really introducing anything new. We're connecting to what they already know, and they already know about animals. So this is all concrete. The pig is first, the duck is last. Now, tell me whether you see same or different. Was the pig first? Yes. Was the duck? And get them to use these words. Duck last, yes. Now let's try it again. Same, and I use my hands. Are we looking at something that's the same, or is it going to be different? Just say the word different and flip my hand. Okay, let's try it again. It's going to be same or different. Oh my, it is different. What's missing? The duck is missing. So you just go back and forth with same and different. We're still different because now the duck is, and we're using these words. So that's what you see. You can make it, you can do all kinds of, you can stretch it out to 3 objects. I mean, eventually it's 3-letter words. So what do we see here? Boy, dog, fish. Boy, dog, fish. Close your eyes and say that. Boy, dog, fish. We're playing. We're playing with important skills, but it's fun for the kids. All right, remember, boy, dog, fish. Are we going to be same or different? Uh-oh. And you elicit that same language. We haven't talked about this spot yet, but we're going to. It's supposed to be boy, dog, fish. And you have these nice manipulatives that your students can play with. They're just some of the activities that I do in the visual channel. Goes on and on as it progresses to more difficult visual activities. But in the visual channel, we've got to develop visual memory, the memory for what they see, visual discrimination, how something different. You know, before you can ever hope to sort out P's, B's, and D's, you've got to have the language to talk about them. How are they different? Or H's and N's and all the things, M's and N's. This finite discrimination, which starts at the gross level with animals and proceeds to much more difficult discrimination activities. My principal came in one day and I had designed these, I thought they were really difficult, bugs with spots. I've got some here. And and sometimes the bugs were different because of their antennas. Sometimes, this is my book. Sometimes the number of spots was different, but it was finite. You see, you work to eventually having your student able to tell you, these are different. They are not the same. And why are they different? And that gets you to finite discrimination for letters in the visual channel. So let me move to the auditory channel. Now, our students, you know that attention is the gatekeeper to learning. I don't want to get off track, but I think I'm going to go off track for just a second, if that's all right.
That's perfectly fine, Beth, because that actually, I want you to talk a little more about that. That's interesting that it's what you just said.
Dr. Eric Treatise, pediatrician. I think he practices in Florida. What did I do with my crayons? Oh, here they are. And he drew a diagram that helped me to understand memory. Now, he made a vase. That looks like that. And he said, up here at the top of this vase is short-term memory. Short-term memory. It's the memory of faces. You're introduced to somebody, and 5 seconds later, you can't remember the name, or you can't remember. We don't have to remember telephone numbers anymore. But boy, if we had to, we'd be in trouble. We didn't have our cell phones. It goes in, it goes out. Then we have working memory. And this is just so Orton Gillingham. Now, working memory, an easy definition for working memory is that you're doing 2 activities at once. All of you who are listening to this webinar, you are listening. Maybe you're taking notes. Maybe you're processing what you're hearing. But you are doing more than just listening. Two or more operations at the same time. And then finally, down here is long term. This is the memory that is stored. That's in our brain. Working memory, and then short term up here. Long term memory. So, as Orton Gillingham practitioners, when we teach something like order, these position words, what comes first, what comes last, we have to rehearse it over and over and over again. And it's this, whatever we do in Orton Gillingham to get information into long-term memory is this rehearsal, whatever activities. And finally, long-term starts to fill up. If you only expose a child one time to something, it is not going to go into long-term memory. So that helped me so much understand the brain and memory. But then this right here is the gatekeeper to all learning. And this is what it is. Attention. If your student is not paying attention, there is no way that information can get even to the working part or to be rehearsed. So our auditory our children who have difficulty with the auditory channel, and I find they are most of our children have auditory deficits. That's where phonological awareness lives, and why we have to develop that in these children, because the typical child, the brain does that automatically. The brain hears a word, the brain matches it to the sounds in that word and stores it as a string of letters. And then ultimately that word is matched with the spoken word and we have learning taking place. But if you don't have attention, you are not going to get any learning. So I learned early on, I had to focus attention. That's a clicker. Kids love this clicker. I would say to them, when you hear it, point. And I would move around the room. I would let them play with it. Point to where you hear the clicker. I would give it to a child. I have several clickers, so I could, in trainings, I can position them around the room. And people get confused because they think I'm the one clicking this thing, but they're hearing it from the back of the room. Focusing attention. So the clicker is a great tool. And I came upon this clicker because a dear woman at the school where I taught for 20 years, Alice Coons, some may have heard of her, fellow in the academy, and I had laryngitis. And she walked in and she saw me hand signaling. Next thing, she comes back, a little green frog. And I've had it ever since. So we've developed some words. We've developed first and last. We've developed order already. So now it's time for the auditory channel to get engaged. And I do that with a series of, I put it like this, I ask my students, what is that? Oh, that's a traffic light. Because it's got the 3 colors. Well, what do the colors mean? Stop, go slow, and go. And so we play traffic light, walk around the room. They have to watch me. At first, I say the colors, and then after a while, nope, you just have to watch and drive your cars according to the colors that you see. And then I convert. And this might be, I think, epitaphs. This might be on my tomb. She invented the garage. Anyway, so these 3 colors, I say, if I turn them sideways, look what happens. I can draw, and I do, I draw these panels around them and put a lid on it, and it becomes a garage. So now we can do many exciting things. I'm going to give you 2 sounds. Remember, this is the auditory channel. 2 sounds. Oink, oink, oink. Moo. What did you hear first? Remember, in visual, what did you see first? Auditory, what did you hear first? And so the children have their own garage, have their own animals, and they talk. I heard the pig first, and I heard the cow. Let's put that last, because first is go, last is stop. That's the end. So you work through the animals till you can develop the middle one. And guess what that's called? That's called next. First, next, last. You can call it middle. You can call it second. So let me give you some sounds. See how good you are at it. What do you hear first, second, and last? Moo. Nay. Oink, oink, oink. And of course, moo, nay, oink. But what they want to do, as soon as you begin with the first sound, moo, they've got to get it up there. No, you can't do it until I nod my head. So that is sequential training, but listening to sounds in the environment that they know about. It's concrete. We're not doing anything scary here. You can do objects. What's this sound? What's this sound? I have pictures of these objects. One-on-one tutoring can certainly really play nicely using the objects themselves. All right, what do you hear first? What do you hear last? And see, then the objects also go on the garage in the right order. And ultimately, you want your students to be able to do this. Show me first, show me last, show me middle, show me end, show me begin. Those little hands just fly along there because we are not only discriminating sounds, but we are orienting to left. Do you know how difficult it is to ask a child, what do you hear first? The word is cup. What do you hear first? Where's first? The word came out of my mouth. It's so nebulous until you develop these different positions. And let's see, ultimately, you can tell stories. They're little stories. And you use your position words. First, he holds a balloon. Next, he lets it go. And at last, the balloon flies away. But if you don't get your students constantly vocalizing all of this, you miss out on the potential connections in the brain of the auditory training you're doing and the words that describe it that create this neural signature in the brain. That's what Dr. Orton said. He said, and he used lip, connected to the lip. Words. We as teachers are so guilty of doing all the talking instead of engaging our children in this talking. So they're just some of the very beginning stages of developing the auditory channel. Then the kinesthetic channel. The kids who hate to draw, it's absolutely amazing how well they do in the kinesthetic channel because they're successful. All right, remember in the visual channel, our little girl Eloise had to learn the names of the letters and the order in which they came. So in the auditory channel, she has to learn to write her name. And the way you learn to write a name, whether you do cursive, which is what I prefer, but this is how she was started. So we trace E, L, O. And it could be that we only can trace one letter at a time and add the letter once they're able to write that much. At any rate, tracing it, saying those letter names over and over, E, L, O, I, and she would not do it this fast. She'd do it very slowly, E. And then you develop a system for how many times you've done this. I mean, do you have to do this the rest of your life, this tracing? No, we're going to only do it one handful. And one handful is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. E, so forth. L, O, I, S, E, naming those letters. And then teaching this system of tallying, especially with older children. They soon find out they can count by fives. It's just really, really nice. So in the kinesthetic channel, name tracing. I had a boy, Daniel, and we were cursive in my school, but look at the first letter of his name. All the bends and twists of the D. down, back this way, forward, backwards, forwards. And the rest of the children in the classroom learned to write their name, but not Daniel. He was stuck on that D and stuck on that D until one day, I think it was a couple of months of tracing this D. He said, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. I said, what do you mean, Daniel? I think I can do it. Well, up on the board and show me. See, that's the final test, is if you can take away the image and they can make the letter. He goes up on the board and he makes a perfect D. I said, oh my goodness, do you think you could fill my boards? I got front boards and side boards, and he did. Class went on, but Daniel filled that all the boards with D's. Then I say, we need a witness. We need somebody to come in and see this incredible accomplishment. There won't be another letter that you have to learn that's going to be as hard as the one you just did. So I went out, we went out and we found the nurse, we found the headmaster, we found a couple parents, and we just said, well, would you come in and look at this marvelous work board? Such terrific affirmation for him. All right, what do we do to build the auditory channel? It's exercises. It's exercises of things students know about. For example, and this is what Helene Durbrow brought to me. And I have to assume that Dr. Orton, who was very strong in the motor component, and he was writing a book. He died too early. We lost him at age 67, but he was writing a book on the motor system and how powerful it is. And Helene Durbrow said to me over and over, what's left in the muscles is the last to go. And what she meant was you could forget all kinds of things in your lifetime. But if you learned it kinesthetically, like riding a bike or swimming, if you haven't done it in many, many, many years, it'll be there for you. If somebody throws you in a swimming pool. Then, of course, there's the story of the Russian pianist who suffered psychological issues and didn't play a concert for 19 years. He just went underground. 19 years later, somebody gives him a piano, and his concertos are still there for him. So what's learned in the muscles is the last to go. It's the most powerful of our systems. So she taught me, you've got to teach the arm to become independent from the body. The student can't move forward and sideways when they're writing. It's just the elbow and up to slight movement in the shoulder. You get that established. And then she taught a cadence, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, from that swing. And I'm going to just do these very quickly, but they take a long time to develop. You could use the swing and make a cat. 1, 2, 1, 2, because you need balls. You need all of these things for writing, especially cursive. And even my print students, I do these same exercises because I want to develop the ability of the arm to be separated from the body so that the brain can feel the movement. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Young students need a lot of help with this in the beginning. And I'm not teaching art. I don't believe in that for children. I believe in their free expression art-wise, but these are exercises. And then they get decorated. And kids love decorating. There. Form exercises. One can be built on another. You can make up your own. 1, 2, 2. This is going to become the L. They have to talk. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Over here. 1. You can sing. You can recite poetry, all kinds of things. And then over and back, for and back. These are the beginning exercises. And finally, a student is allowed to decorate. And look at that cute thing. They love, these were 6-year-olds. Some were 5 turning 6. Another kind of exercise. And I would use colors here. Do you know how it, when I say colors, again, green for go, red for stop. I'm gonna have to make this quick because we're running out of time. Over and back, over and back. 1, 2, 1, 2. These will become railroad tracks. 1, 2. I've been working on the railroad. You just sing your way through it. They love it. Even our attention challenged kids love this. Over and back, over and back. They're successful. 1, 2, 1, 2. You just continue moving across with 1, 2s, 2s, 1, 2s. The whole class gets quiet. It's the most beautiful thing. And then get to decorate. So that's how you get the motor started. And then you play more games like, oh dear, where's my mother? I got this idea out of a readiness book. It was it was a really good idea, but not a good program. So we need to orient to left. Our writing goes from left to right. So we have to, this is just a fun game. And you find my mother. Oh, and then you make meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow, meow. Where's mommy? Meow, meow, meow. Oh, there she is. And in the book, there are lots of animals to play with this way. Oink, oink, where is she? Oink, 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 oink. Kids want to play this every day. Where's my mother? But you don't do this on paper, you do it on a large board. So they really got to move from left to right. Now, where's my boy? We started with him. And we have bombarded the learning channels of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic simultaneously with activities. Lots of auditory activities, lots of visual activities where you know what's first, what's middle, what's last. You discriminate, and then the arm gets developed so that when you have done enough of this and it comes time to teach a letter, whatever one you teach first, you are ready to go. T, visually, with the keyword table. And your ears hear T, they also hear T, table, the sound the T makes, T, and they learn to write it. And that is simultaneous visual, auditory, kinesthetic teaching of sound symbol down the road. Questions? Thoughts?
Beth, I'll tell you, talk about getting the motor started. Your statement there,
Oh my gosh.
for as a parent or as an educator that's on this, or those that are going to view this, because this was amazing. What you brought for there's so much takeaway here as a parent and as a teacher of what you gave us for the whole VAC, the whole visual, auditory, kinesthetic, all those modalities.
Yes, and
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
teachers are especially appreciative because they don't know how to go down under the sound symbol skill.
yeah.
I wouldn't have known it had I not been forced into a teaching situation where I saw that what I was doing wasn't working.
Yeah.
Wasn't. And I had to figure it out. There's some wonderful resources out there. Let me see if I can find. I learned, which is pretty remarkable, a lot of what I taught you from a math book called Mathematics Their Way. And then, where is, there's a whole lot more. There are some very good auditory training books out there. A lot of good phonological awareness, phonemic awareness.
There really are.
Auditory channel develops. Phonemic awareness is up here, but the auditory channel, we start down here and we work towards it.
There's a question in the chat box, Beth. Since we're running out of time, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Are these activities typically started at a certain age or more skill base? So and I think I know what you're going to say about the age.
Yes, that's the answer to everything. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
No matter what the age of a child who learns differently, could be a fifth grader, they may need the kinesthetic training. So you start them all the way back at the beginning with these exercises. Fifth grader with writing difficulties, an older student with auditory sequencing and discrimination issues with the sounds, you go back to the beginning, be a little more sophisticated with maybe these animals or objects. I used to have shakers with different amounts of, they were the film canisters, different amounts and different things in them to discriminate sounds. Some sounds that were similar, like salt and sugar. And because I had to develop the understanding of all of this. But in terms of education, I would say certainly my 4-year-olds, my child is 4, could begin at the beginning with my book. And all these channels are tuned up. Even, a typical learner. Since I don't do any sound symbol in for 3-year-olds, I really don't know. I can't answer to that, but definitely 4-year-olds, definitely a kindergartner. Typical kindergarten classroom should start with all of this because you have these red flag kids at the end of kindergarten. And nowadays, kindergartners are expected to be reading when they enter first grade. So it'd be critical to find the children that need this extra help when they're 4 and 5 so that they're able then to learn the sound symbol.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That makes so much sense.
I have to just say, there's so much. I have so many notes here. And I just can't wait to share this with our teachers here.
Well, I think that,
Oh,
go
did I
ahead.
freeze?
No,
No.
you're
Okay.
okay.
But I wanted to just say what was really powerful for me and what I can't wait for them to see, Beth, is just the jelly bean jars and that capacity building. That was when when you moved that down and showed how to build the capacity back up, I just like the visual of that for me.
Yeah.
It was, there's so much, but that was one of the
I
things.
can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because
Oh,
I just made those and I've had this in my mind
Oh,
every time I go into a candy store. This is what dyslexia looks like.
yes,
yes.
The different
yes,
amounts of jelly beans in the jars.
brilliant. Yes,
So thank
It,
you.
loved it.
definitely, oh my goodness. And I just have to, I think we have to end it with,
Yes.
as a parent, well, let me just say, as a parent, maybe hearing this for the first time, I'm sure there's a lot of aha moments there. But for the teachers that are on here, for us that, as Orton Gillingham practitioners for many years, today was just profound.
Yes.
I cannot tell you what this has done for me. And I'm excited because, we are blessed to already have Beth work with our teachers here.
A big training.
We have a training, and Sarah's going to get some teachers in this training. And we are excited. And this isn't going to end. Beth, I could probably book you for the next 6 months. I'm sure I'm going to get that request.
I'm coming.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to contract her
I
out.
really appreciate it. It's been my pleasure to do it for you all. And
Thank you.
if there are parents who want the guidebook, get in touch with me. Yes. I have a website. It's just readiness for reading.
Yeah. Oh, here, I'm going to I'll write that in there.
.com.
For reading.com. Okay, there we go. There it is. Well,
All right.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
And I look forward to seeing you on December 10th. And thank you for all of you that have joined today. And please share this video once it hits our websites. Share it with other parents. Definitely.
Thank you. Best
Thank
wishes
you,
to
Beth.
all of you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy
Yes,
Thanksgiving
you
to
as well. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.